Alright, looks like I'm up. What is up, everyone? I am SuperViperT302. I am back with another N64 game, specifically the best Mario Kart game, Mario Kart 64. So what I'm going to be doing here is I'm going to be playing through all 16 of these races, all 4 of these cups here on 150cc, and I'm going to be utilizing all the various skips and glitches and tricks and whatnot to make the run go by a little bit faster. So if you are ready for a countdown, then I will go ahead and get started. Started. I actually could have gone for a skip if another character won the bid war, where I could have like boosted off of DK and jumped off of DK's head and jumped over the wall to start there, but unfortunately you can't do that with Peach because the character positions don't allow for that. So I just kind of have to sacrifice that 12 seconds, but it doesn't really matter too much. So on the second lap here, though, I am going to try to get the item block from this balloon coming up here, because there is always a blue shell on that item block, and that will actually come in pretty good handy for the start of the third lap. I want to hold on to that. There we go, I got it. So while we're waiting for what's going to happen on the third lap, I'll just briefly explain this driving technique I'm doing, which is called mini turboing. Pretty common in Mario Kart games. Basically, as I'm drifting, I'm oscillating the control stick back and forth at various intervals, and that's kind of building up the charge. As you can see, the smoke changes color, and once it reaches orange, I can release the charge, and that gives me a small little boost in speed. I accidentally threw the blue shell a little too far to the left. So what I would have done there is because I was in first place, the blue shell would have hit me, and it would have caused me to tumble over that wall, which doesn't have collision in the English version of the game, and I would have just fallen into the tunnel below, which saves roughly another 12 or 13 seconds, but this is just going to have to be a no skips Luigi Raceway, which is fine. There's a bunch of tracks that have like big glitches and skips you can use, so don't feel like this is going to be a huge disappointment. Alright. So that's Luigi Raceway done. That is one track down and 15 to go. So something I should probably explain is what I'm going to be doing during these point screens. To speed them up, I'm actually going to be holding start and mashing A, because that just allows you to advance through them quicker. So next up is Moo Moo Farm. This is a very simple track design with no glitches or skips or shortcuts of any kind. The only thing I really have to worry about in this track are the moles, which are RNG dependent. So I'm going to try to stay away from them as much as I can and hopefully not get hit by any of them. So while I'm on this track, I am going to briefly kind of explain some of the core mechanics behind this game. So, you might have noticed that the bid war was between Yoshi, Toad, and Peach. The reason why it's those 3 characters specifically is because they're all the lightweight characters, and they all tie for having the fastest top speed. So really, in terms of driving, there isn't much of a difference between any of the 3. However, Toad is Toad is lighter than Peach and Yoshi by about 22%. So Yoshi is actually the quickest to select off the cart menu. So usually in runs I would actually use Yoshi, but it doesn't lose that much time to use Peach in this run. Also, I did not mean to run into that wall there. Another thing, the items are also RNG. It is known the probabilities for getting items in whatever place you're in. It's depending on what place you're in. There's no way to like realistically manipulate it. So like these triple green shells, I believe, are a 5% chance in first place. I could be wrong though, don't quote me on that. Yeah, Moo Moo Farm's a pretty short and simple track. Also, I should talk about the CPUs, because they do rubber band in this game. If you don't know what that means, it's basically when a CPU is really far behind, they'll speed up to try to catch up to you. But in this game, when CPUs are not on camera, physics just kind of stop applying to them, so they start constantly boosting, and they can also drive through walls. Hopefully you won't see that happen too much though. So here's Koopa Troopa Beach. This track does not have any real skips or anything that could be classified as a skip, but it does have a shortcut and also another glitch that isn't really a shortcut or a skip. So first of all, we got this little tunnel jump here. This was obviously intended as it's literally built into the track. So this is actually allowed in no skips runs. And now we got the finish line glitch here. This will be the first and probably only instance of you seeing this. Okay, so if you just notice in the lower left-hand corner there, as I was driving over the finish line, I briefly went into 8th place. And that's because there's mismapped polygons to the right of the finish line there that mistakenly think you're actually behind by a lap. And if you activate an item while you're on those polygons, then you could potentially get an 8th place item. So I activated my item at the wrong time, so I wasn't able to get anything, but optimally you could get like a star or a golden mushroom or any sort of speed item. Okay, I'm not going to be able to attempt it on this lap because of that banana. Yeah. That glitch does exist in other tracks, such as Royal Raceway and Yoshi Valley, but it's very unlikely that you'll see me able to perform the glitch there. Okay, I failed that, so I have to do the little backup jump here. I got it. Very nice. Obviously, that's not how you're intended to do that, but it's possible, so it's a nice little backup. So that's the third track down. So up next is Calamari Desert, and this is the first really, really big RNG part of the run, because this is the first time where you're going to be seeing me try a skip that actually requires me to have specific items. So I'm going to do at the start of the race here is I'm going to backtrack, is I'm going to grab items and I'm going to fall back into 8th place. And my preferred item of choice is actually a star, but there are some other items that could work for other things as well. And I got a star first try, very nice. So a star is actually the highest probability item you can get in 8th place, and you also have the highest chance of getting it in 8th place. So I'm actually going to be holding on to this until lap 2. So what I'm going to be doing with the star is actually a developer-intended shortcut, just done in an unintended way. So what you're supposed to do for this is you're supposed to drive through the train tracks to my left, and as you cross by the finish line, you would activate the star and it would move you forward a lap. However, the developers, when designing this, did not take into account that you can actually enter through the tunnel in the other direction. So because of that, you can see good things happen when you take abuse of that. Also, Toad needs to get away from me. Okay. So I'm going to go through this tunnel, wait for the light teacher to tell me to turn around, which is around here. And I'm going to turn around, activate the star, drive over the finish line, and I just skipped a lap. Again, developer intended, but I just kind of didn't do it the way you're supposed to. Okay, so I'm putting this item behind me, which is causing the camera to zoom out. This is actually reducing lag. Since I'm playing on N64, I will have to deal with lag in a few places, but this is one way you can kind of mitigate some of it. And after the final race of every cup, I reset the console, because that just allows me to skip the trophy ceremony, because you don't actually have to watch that in this category. So now we're on to the Flower Cup, starting off with Toad's Turnpike, which has one of the more finicky shortcuts in the game. This might take me a few tries. Alright. That was not a mistake. I did that on purpose. You're probably confused. So what just happened there is I jumped out of bounds, and when Lakitu places you down after you jump out of bounds, while he's still on the screen, he actually can't pick you up again. And so basically I just took advantage of that by beating him to that out of bounds section, which allowed me to kind of jump from the higher level of the track to the lower level. Now my lineup for that was not great, so I'm going to play it a little safe at the start of lap 2 here. Okay, that worked. So, in case you didn't notice there, I just jumped out of bounds and I got moved forward by half a lap. So how that happened is when you do that first shortcut in a particular way, when you're above the road, as you're jumping down to the lower level, if you manage to pull it off that way, then it actually breaks the checkpoint system and allows me to basically just warp forward by half a lap by just jumping out of bounds as soon as I cross the finish line. Funnily enough, that doesn't actually work in the Japanese 1.0 version of the game, so they fixed something for later releases that broke this. So as you can see, I just jumped through the fence and I just got moved forward by almost half a lap. It's pretty awesome. And these cars are on cycles, but you have to pretty much drive perfectly in order to have the same cycle every time. So for a player like me, it's almost always improvisation when I get here. Alright, that was actually a really good Toad's Turnpike. I didn't mess up any of the skips too hardly. Alright, up next is Frappe Snowland, which has probably the easiest shortcut in the entire game, and it's a really big one. You could literally try this at home if you wanted to. So what I'm going to do at the start here is I'm just going to turn around and drive backwards over to the bridge here. And then I'm going to drive from the bridge into the snow without touching the road. And then I'm going to cross the finish line and go out of bounds. Now watch what happens. I just moved forward an entire lap and jumped from 8th place to 1st place. So what's actually happening here is I'm crossing the finish line from out of bounds. And having like you two place me back behind the finish line. There's a bunch of checkpoints and stuff in place to... there's certain checks on certain tracks that require you to go a specific distance past the finish line in order for a lap to count, and apparently that far past the finish line and then landing on that final checkpoint is good enough. So I finished all 3 laps faster than a no-skips player could finish 1. Okay, so that's a really easy track, but now we've got another really difficult track here, Choco Mountain. Another really difficult track here, Choco Mountain. Another really difficult track here, Choco Mountain. This is the first track where you're going to be seeing me go for wall jumps. So there's certain kinds of walls, slanted walls in this game, that you can actually jump off of if you have the right speed and angle, and if you jump on them on the frame. It's known as a 0 frame jump, and I also got one there as well, where sometimes if you have frame window to make the jump, and so it's literally impossible. Anyway, so I'm going to be attempting both of those jumps once per lap. Because the star is going to allow me to any wall jump. But hopefully I can get at least one. Because the wall jumps do look right. Alright, there we go. I got a wall jump. So, no! Okay. Okay, thank God for hills. Thank God that I was able to not fall off there. You can actually only spin yourself out. Thankfully, there was a hill there to prevent me from falling off. Alright, so next up is Mario Raceway, and this track will probably end up being non-shortcut as well, but if I do get a mushroom, I will attempt a shortcut on here that's actually pretty difficult and doesn't save too much time. A mushroom is a 10% chance in first place, so it's hardly likely that I will get one, but I just got one. So I'm actually going to hold on to this, and I'll attempt the shortcut on the next lap. Basically, I'm going to be jumping over the wall, like, midway through the track. You'll see it when it comes up. I rarely ever get this, so the chances of me getting this are actually pretty low. Yeah, I didn't get it. You need to have a really, really good jump in order to make that. Yeah, I'm only going to go for that once. Wow, DK. Well, the thing about the CPUs is that they're actually relatively tame with items, because they cannot throw shells of any kind And they can use lightnings, but they have to be in 8th place, and it's a 1% chance for them to get a lightning, so it's pretty rare. So I don't have to worry about, like, getting blue shell in every single race like most other Mario Kart games. Okay, so I'm actually going to use this mushroom instead to kind of boost across the grass here. And I forgot to reset the console. That's fine. Now it's time to move on to the Star Cup. And to start, we have Wario Stadium, which can either be an insanely fast race, or it can take forever. It depends on how nice the game wants to be to you. So this wall looks like you can jump it, right? If the game will allow me, I can. There we go. And this wall, maybe not so much. Oh, I accidentally jumped over the wrong part on the one side. So yeah, these are also jumps that are frame perfect, and I don't know why I'm landing on the other side of the finish line. I'm just gonna be on this side of the finish line and just go for this. Yeah, this is another one of those jumps that's frame perfect and sometimes literally impossible. There we go. Yeah, still at 33-second lap. I could have been done with the track already, by the way. Yeah, sometimes this just happens where you just get 0 framed over and over again. This jump is really hard to make. There we go. So I have to do both of those one more time. Alright. That last lap was really fast. Yeah, that under a minute, that's not horrible, but optimally you can be done with this track in like under 30 seconds. Alright, so now we get a little bit of a break here, because now it's time for Sherbert Land. This track does not have any shortcuts or skips that are viable for humans to do. There are some in the All Cups tasks made by Drew Weatherton, which I would highly recommend checking out immediately after this run. But they require crazy, like, CPU jumps that you just cannot reasonably manipulate in a real-time run, because you don't really have an efficient way of predicting where the CPUs are going to be all the time. Also, the penguins here are on cycles. I also don't want to fall into the water on this track, because if I do, then it actually takes extra time for me to get out than usual, because I actually turn into a frozen ice cube, and it takes a couple extra seconds to break out of that. So falling in the water here is not good. Nearly hit that penguin there. If you hit a penguin head on, as like you saw earlier, it causes you to spin out, which loses like 2 to 3 seconds. By the way, all these like gap jumps that I'm doing, these corner cuts I'm doing, those are also not classified as skips. And similarly, cutting across the grass like you saw me do on Mario Raceway, that's also not classified as a skip. Alright, I'm going to use this boot here for invincibility frames so that I can safely make my way through these penguins. By the way, when you use a boo in Grand Prix mode, it doesn't actually steal items from other CPUs, it just acts as a normal item box. You have the same probabilities of getting the same items, although you also have a 20% chance of getting nothing. So yeah, a couple mishaps on lap 1, but overall still a very solid SL. I didn't fall in the water or anything. And that's really all you can ask for in a run like this. Next up is Royal Raceway. And this has one pretty big shortcut that I'm going to be going for. And it's actually pretty quickly into the course. So I'm just going to kind of hop across the river and try to hit a specific part on the other side of the river. And I got it. So if you saw that little polygon line down the left side of the screen, you want to hit just to the right of that polygon line. It basically makes the game think you attempted to jump from that big ramp and missed for no good reason, because Nintendo is amazing at making video games. And allows me to skip almost half the lap. Also, I put that fake iron box in a really bad spot. So I'm going to be going for that on all 3 laps here. It's a little tricky to get, especially with the setup I'm using, but or lack thereof. But once you have them moving down, it's really not that difficult. You're actually looking for the word poop. If you don't see poop there, you probably didn't get it. Also, there's another shortcut on the track where you can actually jump off to the left after going off of that ramp, and you can land in the river on the other side and trick Lucky into placing you around this last corner here. However, it's rather difficult and only saves like 1/4 of a second, and it loses like 10 seconds if you fail it, so I don't consider it worth it in runs, especially for someone of my skill level. So hopefully I can get the river jump one more time. Alright, perfect. 3 for 3 is always really good. By the way, you can drive over to that castle there, in case you're wondering. You don't really have a reason to, though. That was a really good Royal Raceway. Alright, so next we have the final race of the Cup. We've got Bowser's Castle. And this track also does not have any shortcuts or skips. Again, at least none that humans can reasonably do. So this level is just going to be pretty straightforward. These swamps are pretty much all on cycles, except for 2 of them in this room. Those 2 that track you, those are the only non-cycle based swamps because they actually are trying to follow you. But other than that, these swamps are pretty much all on cycle, so I have to make sure I keep my driving up to par so that I know where the swamps are going to be. Or else I'm going to have to improvise. And if you pay close attention, you could find Marty. I'm not really going to give any more information about that, just know that Marty is here. I did not mean to use that much, I did not anticipate getting it. And I have to make sure none of these swamps squish me, or else that's actually a really big time loss. I should be able to go to the right here, yeah. Sometimes if you're not on your right cycle there, you just kind of have to make a blind guess. It's kind of a see and react sort of situation. And if you don't react to the swamps quickly enough, then you'll either run into them or get squished by them, and either of those is a good deal of time. So I'm holding on to this boo until I get to the swamp room again, just so I can safely make my way through the swamps. Again, because boos give you a shortened visibility frame. So I'm not even going to have to worry about them. That bridge is the thinnest part of the game that doesn't have sides, by the way. So we're almost to the end of the lap here, and then I'll be doing the final reset of the run. And that's 3 out of 4 cups done, so now all we have left is the special cup. So let's hope that I selected Peach on the right frame there, and I'll elaborate on that more later. But now it's time for DK's Jungle Parkway, or DK's Laggy Parkway, because this is the laggiest track in the game. Unfortunately, it's going to be done with rather quickly, because similarly to Prop Race No Man, I'm just going to turn around at the start and go back into the cave here. And there's a little seam in the wall here that I'm going to try to drive through, and the finish line extends slightly out of bounds. So I can actually cross the finish line from out of bounds, and I was too far to the left there, so I didn't get it. But you kind of see what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to kind of make the game advance me forward by a lap. You don't actually have to land back in the cave in order to pull this off, but it's way faster. So as you can see there, I just jumped from 8th place to first place. So I got to do that 2 more times, and the race will be over. The lineup for this is somewhat specific, and as you can see, if you're too far to the right there, you'll just kind of get popped back into the jungle. But again, you don't have to land back into the cave in order to get this. Too far to the left again. The lineup for this can be somewhat precise, especially if you're trying to go for it without falling in the water. So this will work. Like, I'm going to fall in the water, but I'm still going to skip a lap. So now I just have to do that one more time. So as you can see, I'm at the end of lap 2 here. A little bit sloppy, but this is it's a rather finicky shortcut to get down, so not too surprising. The first lap was really kind of what set me back by a lot. But the skips don't stop there, because now it's time for Yoshi Valley, where I actually have a variety of options here. So I'm actually going to be at the start of the race. I'm going to try to get triple mushrooms by getting item boxes and dropping back into 5th and 6th place. But if I don't get triple mushrooms, I do have a backup plan. Let's see what happens here. Alright, triple red shells, that's not very good. Lightning is even worse. So I'm going to go ahead and just do the backup route, which involves me taking this far right path, which is surprisingly the... Oh, wow, what a tease. This is actually the slowest path, but taking this path for some dumb reason breaks the checkpoint systems. That allows me to just jump off here and cross the finish line and just skip a lap. That only works if you take the far right path. So shouts to Beck Abney, the current world record holder of this category, for discovering that. I'm going to do the hairpin jump here. That's also not classified as a skip for some reason. So I'm actually going to be using these mushrooms to do a lap skip at the beginning of the next lap. I'm going to head over to a visual spot on the ground here and line myself up, and I'm going to try to boost and hop over the fence here. And I'm going to hit that dark line and get this bounce left. And I bounce around the finish line, and like Luigi places me down in front of the finish line, but still counts. So yeah, I just kind of finished the race there. Alright, next up is Banshee Boardwalk. So this track also does not have any skips or shortcuts. Again, none that can be reasonably done by humans. But I do want to kind of keep my eye on the CPU rankings during this race. Right now, things are not looking too good because I don't have any heavyweights in the... Oh, actually, I have Bowser in the top 4 here. So I want a heavyweight, so either Bowser, Wario, or DK in the top 4 here, because if I can have a heavyweight come in first and then I come in third, that will allow me to that sets me up to do a pretty neat little thing at the start of Rainbow Road here. That requires the CPUs to behave, and also the way CPUs are kind of handled in this game is basically at the character select screen, there's a counter that's select your character. It selects a primary rival and a secondary rival for you. So these are kind of the characters that get kind of the faster rubber banding, and they tend to drive better than the rest of your other opponents. So it looks like Bowser and Luigi are my rivals here, maybe Yoshi. It's that, so one of those 3 are my rivals here. And I hope Bowser can kind of pull it strong in the end. It's not going to be a huge deal if he doesn't, but I would like for Bowser to actually win here. And that sounds kind of counterintuitive, wasting time, but if it does happen, I could potentially save time at the start of the next race. Okay, I now have DK in the top 4. If DK somehow manages to catch us, that would also be good. Bowser is currently in second place. I hope he stays there. Ooh, I have 2 heavyweights in the top 4 now. Alright, so now it's basically guaranteed that I'll have a heavyweight come in first place here. So I'm actually going to stop at the finish line here. I'm going to wait for Bowser to cross, and I'm going to wait for DK to cross. And then I'm going to finish the race myself. Again, that seems kind of counterintuitive, but the ending result is going to be worth it. So I'm not even going to explain it ahead of time. I'm just going to kind of let you see for yourself what I'm going to be doing here. So get ready. Thank you, Bowser. Yeah, I just kind of jumped off of his head there for a nice little time save there, and nice chomp. Optimally, if you do that CPU jump, you can't actually land on the higher up spiral and save an additional 10 seconds, but that's fine as well. I jumped a little too far when I did that. So now that I'm in first place and I'm halfway through the lap, I'm going to be trying to get a green shell, because that will allow me to do something kind of cool at the end of the lap. A green shell is the highest probability item you can get in first place, because you can get both singles and green and triples. However, RNG... Alright, there we go, I got a single, so this will allow me to do something kind of cool at the end of the lap here. RNG this run has thankfully been somewhat decent. Alright, so hopefully I can get this first try. This is a somewhat finicky trick I'm going to go for here. There we go. Alright, so what just happened there is I used that green shell to shoot me over the fence, which is going to accomplish something similar to what you saw on DKJP and Frappe Snowland, where basically I go past the finish line like that, and once like he places me down, I'm actually now an entire lap ahead. So now I have a lot more time to get another green shell and do that exact same thing. There we go. Ah, I had a banana in my way, so I couldn't take the proper approach to the green shell that I wanted. That's fine. I've got plenty of time. The CPUs are really far behind me right now. Ugh. It is kind of precise though, because you do have to hit the green shell at a specific time in order to get launched over the fence. Ah, stupid bananas. Oh, that's not good. Okay, that's fine actually, because I have triples for now. Oh my god, chomp, please. Okay, this is not very good. So let's please get this before the CPUs come around a third time. There we go. A little unfortunate there. Alright, so time is actually going to be when I cross the finish line for the final time, so get ready for that. That was a very unfortunate time loss there. This could have been like a low 31 if not for that, but still managed to pull it off, so that's good. I didn't have to drive an extra lap. And time. Alright, my timer says 32:16. My PB in this category is actually a 29:38. And the world record is, I believe, a 25:30 something by Beck Abney, or Abney317. Another Mario Kart 64 runner I would highly recommend checking out. So that was an okay-ish run, I guess. Didn't make it too many major mistakes, so I'm happy about that. So if you're interested in more about this game, or if you're interested in running time trials, which I myself don't do, but there's a very active community for time trials, you should check out MarioKart64.com. It's been active for a very, very long time. And with that, I am signing off, and I will throw it back on over to those.
Okay, thank you very much for that run, Viper. Next up, we have Mario vs. Donkey Kong. Set to be a very good run. However, between runs, we are going to be changing streams. So the stream's going to drop for about 15 seconds. Don't adjust your set, it will come back up pretty quickly. Don't panic. And hopefully, I'll see you on the other side.